Amelia Westwood's finger hovered like a sharp blade over Chloe Monroe's face. Chloe's eyes glistened with tears she struggled to contain, her ragged breathing betraying the humiliation burning inside her. "You're pathetic," Amelia spat coldly. "How dare you think you can compete with me? Look at yourself." She leaned in closer, her finger nearly touching Chloe's face. The room fell into a deafening silence. The atelier staff watched, frozen, as though the air had been sucked away. Chloe felt smaller than ever. Shame burned her cheeks, and her throat clenched with a suffocating knot. But behind her teary, humiliated gaze, a spark of defiance began to form. Something raw, painful, but powerful. She didn't know it yet, but that humiliation would ignite her true rise in the ruthless fashion world. Amelia Westwood embodied success. From a young age, her unmatched talent and relentless ambition built a fashion empire that dazzled the global elite. Her shows were prestigious events, and her creations were celebrated masterpieces. The walls of her luxurious New York atelier displayed fashion magazine covers and gleaming awards, testifying to her undeniable glory. Despite her power and prestige, a shadow loomed over her, the constant fear of being replaced. The fashion world was merciless, with fresh talent emerging each season. To Amelia, young designers were hidden threats, ready to topple her carefully built reign. With near-obsessive perfectionism and arrogance masked as confidence, she demanded unwavering loyalty and flawless execution from her team. No mistake was tolerated. Any slip-up could end a career. The atelier was a dream factory for those on her good side, and a nightmare for anyone who became her target. This was the world of opulence and constant tension in which Chloe Monroe found herself trapped. Recently hired as a junior assistant, she dreamed of seeing her designs come to life. Her talent was undeniable, but her modest appearance and lowly position made her invisible to most, except, of course, when something went wrong. That fateful day, when Amelia exposed Chloe in front of everyone, it was more than a professional mistake. It was a brutal display of power. But away from the boss's watchful eyes, Chloe's creative brilliance still burned, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Stronger, brighter, and more unstoppable than anyone could imagine. Chloe Monroe was a young designer whose dreams were as vast as her creativity. Since childhood, she had transformed scraps of fabric into imaginary dresses, stitching stories through the subtle lines of her creations. Her natural talent flourished over the years, driven by an insatiable passion for the art of fashion. Physically, Chloe was unassuming. Her brown hair fell in soft waves, and her blue eyes carried a quiet intensity. Her personal style was simple but always adorned with a unique touch, a silk ribbon improvised as a belt or a vintage brooch pinned to the worn coat she wore during New York's cold days. Despite her modest appearance, her portfolio was a spectacle of originality. Her designs defied predictable trends, blending bold textures with classic cuts, resulting in pieces full of personality and elegance. When she landed a junior assistant position at Amelia Westwood's renowned atelier, she believed she was one step closer to realizing her dreams. But the reality of the environment was far more brutal than she had imagined. In the atelier's rigid hierarchy, Chloe was little more than a shadow, assigned repetitive tasks and always on the fringes of creative decisions. However, her passion never faded. She worked tirelessly, sometimes late into the night, refining her ideas and sketching entire collections no one would see. Her determination was her most precious secret, an unyielding force that grew stronger with every obstacle. Though often ignored by colleagues and underestimated by superiors, Chloe found small refuges in the art she created in silence. She believed that one day her vision would be recognized, not for appearances but for the authenticity of her work. It was this unwavering faith that kept her grounded, even when the world around her seemed determined to extinguish her light. And though no one knew it, her true story was just beginning. Everything began during an internal meeting at Amelia Westwood's atelier, where new ideas for the upcoming fall collection were being presented. The team lined up around the large oak conference table, their tense expressions reflecting the severe atmosphere that always hung under Amelia's leadership. As a junior assistant, Chloe Monroe was there only to take notes and bring fabric samples, but she couldn't stop her mind from buzzing with ideas. Inspired by a sleepless, productive night, she had discreetly sketched some bold designs in her notebook. During the meeting, as others presented safe, conventional proposals, Amelia grew increasingly irritated. Her piercing gaze silenced any attempt at mediocre innovation. Desperate for something fresh, one of the creative directors noticed Chloe's open notebook beside her. "What's this?" he asked, grabbing the sketches before Chloe could react. Amelia frowned but narrowed her sharp eyes as she examined the drawings. The bold, dynamic lines reimagined classic cuts with a modern twist. Exactly what the collection needed. "Interesting," Amelia murmured, adjusting her pearl necklace with a calculated air. "There. Promising." Chloe could hardly breathe. Those were her designs. But before she could say anything, Amelia firmly closed the notebook and declared, "We'll use these concepts as the collection's base. The team can start refining them immediately. I'll oversee the process myself." There was no mention of Chloe's name. She stood paralyzed, torn between indignation and disbelief. The sketches representing hours of passionate work now officially belonged to Amelia Westwood. That night, Chloe returned to her tiny apartment in tears but determined. She wouldn't let her talent be erased again. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of a silent battle that would change their lives forever. Fashion Week was just weeks away, and Amelia Westwood's atelier buzzed with activity. Models endured endless fittings, seamstresses adjusted dresses, and assistants rushed around carrying piles of fabric and accessories. Chloe Monroe worked tirelessly, perfecting the dresses based on her stolen sketches, now coming to life under Amelia's direct supervision. Even without receiving credit, she couldn't set aside her perfectionism. Every stitch, every seam reflected her artistic soul. Then, it happened. During a final fitting, Amelia spotted a small flaw in the fit of one of the main dresses, a detail almost imperceptible to anyone but her. Furious, she seized the mistake as an opportunity to reassert her authority. "Monroe!" Amelia's voice cracked through the atelier like a whip. Everyone froze, dreading what would come next. Chloe hesitantly approached, her heart pounding in her chest. "You're a disappointment," Amelia hissed, her face twisted with contempt. "How dare you present such mediocre work in my atelier?" Chloe swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every gaze on her. "I can fix it. I just need more time." "Time?" Amelia interrupted with a cold smile. "If you can't get it right the first time, maybe this place isn't for you." The words cut like blades. Chloe felt tears burning her eyes but refused to let them fall. With an impatient wave, Amelia turned and walked away, leaving suffocating silence behind. Some team members looked at Chloe with pity. Others avoided eye contact, fearing they might be next. Alone, Chloe gathered the dress with trembling hands, determined to transform it into the atelier's most stunning piece. The humiliation still burned, but beneath the ashes, something stronger began to emerge, an unshakable will to prove her worth, not to Amelia, but to herself. The days leading up to Fashion Week were a whirlwind of work and tension at Amelia Westwood's atelier. Every adjusted seam, every final embroidery brought them closer to the most anticipated event of the year. For Chloe Monroe, those days were a constant battle against exhaustion and discouragement. Though her name was never mentioned, she knew her creations would grace New York's most prestigious runway, even if the glory would belong to someone else. Then, unexpected news arrived. One of the lead models cancelled her participation in the show due to a family emergency. Amelia was on the verge of a breakdown, furious and demanding a suitable replacement. "Someone needs to fix this now," Amelia shouted, as her team exchanged panicked glances. It was then that Chloe, summoning courage she didn't know she had, stepped forward. "I know someone," she said, her voice steady despite the fear surging within her. Amelia narrowed her eyes, scrutinizing her with suspicion. "If this person isn't perfect, it'll be your head." Without hesitation, Chloe grabbed her phone and called her longtime friend Lena Carter, a talented model still waiting for her big break. Hours later, Lena arrived at the atelier, radiating confidence and elegance. The team watched in silence as Amelia inspected every detail, circling her like a predator examining prey. "She'll do," Amelia finally declared, reluctantly. "Get her ready for the final fitting." As Lena was prepped for her first trial, Chloe felt something shift. For the first time, her instinct and determination had created a real opportunity. She knew this decision could change not just her friend's life, but her own. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, Chloe no longer felt like a disposable piece. She was a creative force waiting to be discovered, and she was closer than ever to making it happen. Amelia Westwood's atelier buzzed with activity in the final days before Fashion Week. Seamstresses, designers, and assistants worked late into the night, transforming ideas into masterpieces. The air was charged with urgency. Every second counted. Amelia, always impeccable and authoritative, supervised every detail with eagle eyes. Nothing escaped her critical gaze, and any imperfection was mercilessly corrected. The pressure was immense, but the promise of a flawless show kept everyone focused. Chloe Monroe stayed behind the scenes, performing seemingly insignificant tasks. She adjusted dresses, organized accessories, and ensured every piece was ready for the grand presentation. Her creations came to life before her eyes, though no one knew she was the true mind behind many of the designs. In an adjacent room, Lena Carter went through her final fittings. Since being chosen to replace the lead model, her charisma and professionalism had won over the team. With her striking features and commanding presence, she seemed destined for that moment. "Monroe!" Amelia's voice echoed. Chloe dropped everything and ran. "I want you out of the way on show day," Amelia ordered, as cold as ever. "Stay backstage and make sure nothing goes wrong." Chloe nodded, hiding her indignation. Her place would be far from the spotlight, but she knew her creations would shine, even if her name remained a secret. As the runway night approached, Chloe worked until her fingers ached. Something deeper guided her movements, an unshakable determination that this night would not mark the end of her story, but the beginning of a new era. The night of the grand show finally arrived. The grand event hall in the heart of New York sparkled with camera flashes and shimmering lights. Celebrities, fashion critics, and industry moguls filled the entrance, posing for photos and exchanging calculated greetings. Amelia Westwood made a triumphant entrance. Dressed in a stunning custom-made black gown, she radiated power and prestige. Beside her, a small entourage of advisors and assistants ensured every detail went perfectly. Reporters swarmed around her, hungry for statements. Ms. Westwood, "What can we expect from your new collection?" With a measured smile, she replied, "Excellence, as always." Her words were sharp and deliberate, projecting absolute confidence. Backstage, Chloe Monroe watched from afar, her heart torn between pride and frustration. Her creations would walk the runway that night, but her name wouldn't be associated with them. Her hands still bore the marks of relentless work, tiny needle pricks and threads that testified to her dedication. Lena Carter, radiant in one of the collection's most anticipated gowns, prepared to step onto the runway. She caught Chloe's gaze and smiled knowingly, as if saying, "This is your victory too." Chloe took a deep breath. The brilliance of the lights and the grandeur of the event couldn't extinguish the truth burning within her. That night would be unforgettable, in a way no one could yet imagine. The runway show unfolded with mesmerizing splendor. Each model who crossed the catwalk drew gasps from the audience. Cameras captured every detail of the dazzling creations attributed to Amelia Westwood's genius. Backstage, Chloe Monroe watched in silence. Each dress on display was a piece of her soul stitched in silk and embroidered with dreams. The world applauded her talent, unaware that it was hers. Then, the unexpected happened. During a backstage pause, renowned fashion reporter Ethan Caldwell wandered in search of an exclusive story. His keen eyes spotted something unusual, a forgotten sketchbook left on a work table, its pages filled with meticulously detailed designs signed C. Monroe. Intrigued, Ethan flipped through the sketches and instantly recognized the designs gracing the runway. The signature was a bombshell revelation. Without wasting a moment, he approached a distracted assistant and asked, "Who is C. Monroe?" The assistant froze, startled. "She's just one of the design assistants." The reporter smiled shrewdly. This was far more than it seemed. Across the atelier, Chloe felt an inexplicable chill as she adjusted the final dress of the night. Something was about to change, and she was about to be thrust into the spotlight in a way she never imagined. The backstage commotion quickly spread through the event. Determined to uncover the truth behind the sketches signed C. Monroe, Ethan Caldwell contacted his most influential fashion industry connections, including Alexander Hayes, a powerful critic and sponsor of Fashion Week, known for his integrity and sharp eye for genuine talent. When the news reached Alexander's ears, his curiosity was piqued. With years of experience exposing fraud and discovering rising stars, he couldn't ignore the potential discovery. Without warning, he headed backstage with unquestionable authority. "I need to speak with Amelia Westwood and her design team. Now." His voice echoed, firm and unyielding. Amelia, still basking in the glow of apparent success, frowned upon hearing about Alexander's presence. Taking a deep breath, she adjusted her posture and walked toward him with a controlled smile. "Mr. Hayes, what an honor to have you here. I hope you're enjoying our show." Alexander remained expressionless. "I've received intriguing information. I'd like to meet the designer responsible for the original sketches for this collection." For a split second, Amelia's blood ran cold, but she quickly regained her composure. "The entire collection was created under my supervision. My team is dedicated, but I am the main creative force." Before she could continue her lie, Ethan Caldwell's voice emerged from behind Alexander. "I have evidence that says otherwise." He held up the sketchbook with C. Monroe boldly written across its cover. Alexander slowly turned back to Amelia. "Bring everyone involved. Now." On the other side of the atelier, Chloe Monroe, unaware of what was about to unfold, finished adjusting the final gown. Her life was about to change forever. The silence in the improvised meeting room was deafening. Alexander Hayes stood firm and unyielding, while Amelia Westwood struggled to maintain her composed facade. Ethan Caldwell held the sketchbook like irrefutable evidence, which, in truth, it was. "Bring C. Monroe here now," Alexander ordered. An assistant hurried out, and minutes later, Chloe Monroe was escorted into the room, her eyes filled with confusion and apprehension. She had no idea what was happening, but the tension was palpable. "Are you C. Monroe?" Alexander asked in a voice that tolerated no lies. "Yes, I am," Chloe replied hesitantly. Her blue eyes glimmered with determination despite the uncertainty. Alexander took the sketchbook from Ethan's hands and opened it before her. "Are these your designs?" Chloe's eyes widened as she recognized her creations. "Yes, they're mine. But how did you—" Before she could finish, Amelia interrupted. "These sketches were developed under my supervision. Chloe is part of my team, so technically—" "Silence!" Alexander's voice thundered. "Don't try to twist the truth." He turned back to Chloe with a softer expression. "Did you design this entire collection?" Chloe took a deep breath. "Yes, I created every piece. But I never received credit." A murmur of shock rippled through the room. Ethan scribbled notes feverishly, knowing this was the story of his career. "Consider yourself discovered," Alexander said with a rare smile. "Your talent will no longer be ignored." Amelia felt the ground collapse beneath her as Chloe's rise became inevitable. For the first time, her empire, built on lies, was about to crumble, and nothing could stop Chloe Monroe's authentic brilliance from shining. The headlines exploded the next morning. "Hidden genius behind Amelia Westwood's collection exposed," and "Chloe Monroe, the name behind the year's top fashion show." Fashion websites, TV shows, and social media buzzed with the bombshell revelation. The truth was finally out, and the fashion world was in shock. As Chloe Monroe received a flood of interview requests and job offers from prestigious brands, Amelia Westwood faced a storm of criticism. Her name, once synonymous with prestige and creativity, became the center of a plagiarism and fraud scandal. Her biggest sponsors pulled their contracts, her flagship stores faced protests from emerging artist advocates, and her upcoming shows were cancelled. Amelia's carefully crafted image crumbled faster than she could control. In her now empty and silent atelier, Amelia stared at her barren shelves and abandoned mannequins. Every gleaming award and framed photo of her achievements seemed to mock her. In a last-ditch effort to salvage her reputation, she delivered a public statement. Facing the cameras, visibly worn, she admitted her wrongdoing. "I made serious mistakes," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I underestimated a talented young woman and acted unforgivably. I am truly sorry." But her apology came too late. Backstage, Chloe watched the broadcast with mixed emotions. The woman who had humiliated her countless times now stood exposed before the entire world, broken and defeated. Amelia Westwood was no longer fashion's untouchable queen. Her fall was as grand as her rise, and irreversible. The week following Amelia Westwood's downfall was a whirlwind for Chloe Monroe. Invitations for interviews poured in, along with job offers from some of the biggest fashion houses. Her name graced the covers of major fashion magazines, and her social media accounts exploded with messages of support and admiration. One morning, while sipping coffee in her small kitchen, her phone rang. It was Alexander Hayes. "Miss Monroe." His voice was firm but cordial. The Hayes Foundation for Young Creators would like to sponsor your first independent collection. You'll have full creative freedom and an exclusive runway show next season. Chloe could hardly believe it. This was the opportunity she had always dreamed of. Days later, she was back on the runway. But this time, as the lead designer. The event was luxurious, but there was an authenticity and emotion in the air that no amount of money could buy. Every dress on the runway carried her true signature, her ideas intact, her soul in every stitch. When the presentation ended, the audience erupted into a standing ovation. Renowned critics stepped forward to congratulate her. From a distance, Ethan Caldwell, the reporter who uncovered the truth, smiled proudly, knowing he had helped bring genuine talent into the spotlight. During her closing speech, Chloe spoke with heartfelt emotion. "My story isn't just my own. It's about every creator who's ever been silenced, every artist whose voice has been stolen. Today, I stand for all of us." At that moment, Chloe Monroe was no longer an invisible assistant. She was a rising star, not for fame, but for the authenticity of her talent. Months after her triumphant runway debut, Chloe Monroe was busy managing her prestigious fashion house when she received an unexpected visit. The receptionist hesitated as she spoke. "Amelia Westwood is here. She says she wants to talk to you." Chloe felt a tightness in her chest, but kept her posture firm. "Send her in." Amelia entered the room, her appearance marked by the wear and tear of the scandal. She was a far cry from the imposing figure she once was, wearing simple clothes and an expression blending wounded pride and genuine remorse. "Miss Monroe," Amelia began, her voice trembling. "Thank you for seeing me." Chloe nodded silently. "I needed to say how deeply sorry I am," Amelia continued. "I was consumed by the fear of losing everything I built, and I made unforgivable mistakes." A heavy silence followed. "I didn't come expecting forgiveness," Amelia admitted, averting her gaze. "I just thought I owed you, and myself, the truth." Chloe clasped her hands together, her breathing steady. "You destroyed my dreams, but you also gave me a reason to fight." Amelia nodded slowly, understanding. "I hope that someday you find a way to start over," Chloe added with unexpected sincerity. "But this time be honest." Amelia rose, visibly moved by a generosity she never anticipated. As she left, Chloe felt a peace she'd never known. It wasn't about defeating Amelia, but freeing herself from the past. She was no longer defined by it. She owned her story and was ready to write new chapters. Weeks after meeting Chloe, Amelia Westwood chose to step away from the spotlight and reevaluate her life and career. With her brand in ruins and her reputation shattered, she sought refuge in a secluded mountain cabin, far from the cameras and public judgment. Days passed in silence, and nights were filled with painful introspection. For the first time, Amelia allowed herself to confront her failures without excuses. There were no teams to protect her image or lies to sustain her empire. One morning, while sorting through old sketches, she found something long forgotten. A notebook filled with designs from before her career skyrocketed. Each drawing was pure, driven by genuine passion she had long sacrificed for ambition. Inspired, Amelia began sketching again. Her hands, once hardened by the relentless pursuit of perfection, rediscovered creative freedom. With each line she traced, something inside her healed. Determined to make amends, Amelia made a bold choice. She contacted Chloe Monroe. "I have a proposal," she wrote in a heartfelt letter. "I want to create a new collection. Together. No lies. No manipulations." just creativity and truth." Days later, Chloe responded, "Be true to what you promised. I'm willing to try." Thus, two women bound by a complicated past decided to take a risk on an unlikely collaboration, not as mentor and apprentice, but as equals, ready to create something neither could achieve alone. Months later, the unexpected partnership between Chloe Monroe and Amelia Westwood became the fashion world's most talked about story. The announcement of a joint collection sparked equal parts curiosity and skepticism. The collection, titled Rebirth, symbolized more than just a high fashion lineup. Each piece told a story of redemption, regret, and forgiveness. The designs were bold yet timeless, blending intense colors with flowing fabrics that embodied the creative freedom born from transformation. On the night of the show, the grand venue was packed. Journalists, critics, and fashion industry icons watched, anticipating an unforgettable display, and they were not disappointed. When the final model walked the runway wearing the collection's iconic signature piece, the audience erupted into thunderous applause. Chloe and Amelia emerged side by side to receive the standing ovation. There was no room for rivalry or pretense, only mutual respect and recognition that together they had created something that transcended competition. During a post-show interview, Chloe reflected, "This collection isn't about fashion. It's about rebuilding. It shows that we can redefine ourselves if we're willing to face our mistakes and do better." Emotionally moved, Amelia added, "I realized that true success isn't about perfection, but about authenticity and the positive impact we leave behind." Their journey inspired a new generation of designers and creators. Rebirth wasn't just a collection. It was a symbol that even the greatest mistakes could become something extraordinary, with honesty, courage, and a genuine will to change.